Hello, let's talk about Zndg, Greg Egan's 2010 near future science fiction novel examining the nature and ethics of creating computer computer consciousness and also the sort of nature of human desire for immortality. So yes, this is a book which has been on my Kindle or in my Kindle account for sometime probably close to 2010, and I finally, thanks to the booktube spin challenge created by Rick McDonald, I actually sat down and read this book, which is, yes, it's a near fiction novel. Half of it takes place in 2012, which was near future at that point, where Australian uh, an Australian foreign correspondent, Martin, travels to Iran to kind of take up a post there to cover the political kind of upheaval that's going on there. Maybe the end of the theocracy that sort of holds Iran under its control. And at the same time, we meet Nazim, who is a Iranian exile living in the United States, who is a scientist working on building computer models of the minds of finches, little birds, trying to kind of come up with a general finch mind as obviously kind of a first step to working on human to doing the same of maybe duplicating a human consciousness in the computer. There's a variety of players that are kind of circling that circle around her. People who are interested in making kind of a computer god that will rule over them all and become the higher singularity consciousness. Others who are interested in achieving immortality through uploading that sort of stuff. That is the first half of the novel. The second half of the novel, it jumps forward about 15 years to what's actually still the future now. I got to the novel in time, in 2027, 2028, where we're back in Iran, and this is where Martin becomes interested in the tech that has taken steps forwards. In the meantime, he is interested in involving himself in this consciousness, which perhaps by this point can somehow at least simulate a human consciousness, and perhaps maybe even a particular human consciousness. And at the same time, there are still more actors who have raised serious concerns about this, and some of the people are using very kind of troublemaking ways of doing that. The Zndg itself refers to the platform, this sort of a VR platform, which Nazim is using kind of little prototypes of this computer consciousness. Zndg is Persian for life, and oftentimes in the game, Martin and his son, who has enters the picture in this 15 after this 15 year jump. They often play within this Persian epic poem story, the Shahnameh. I will apologize for that. That is a great epic poem in Persian literature, which I have just butchered the name of. So, at the beginning, I was pretty concerned if I was going to need to know a lot about Iranian politics going into the book, because at the very beginning it is very much interested in a contemporary, even if it is only 2 years ahead. Egan seems to very much be using the politics of 2010 and around then to kind of to all the different complexities, and it's like, oh, am I going to be lost at sea? That doesn't seem to be an issue. Especially as we do the time jump, we sort of leave behind all the kind of intricacies of Iranian politics. I really like how Egan in this book definitely has the reputation as a hard SF writer, which means not doing a lot of hand waving and just saying yada yada yada, faster than light travel. He's not that kind of science fiction writer. He's very much a science fiction writer who's interested in science and is well aware of obviously the history of science and how progress on stuff can be very stop and start, is developed within teams. I've been reading a book about scientific discovery in the last couple of months, so I had that fresh in my mind, and this very much has that sense of verisimilitude of people try different paths. A lot of them are dead ends. There's no guarantee that this is going to be the amazing discovery, and by the end we don't have some spoiler, we do not have some computer god shining its light down and stuff like this. Indeed, you could look at this book as very much as here's another perhaps a blind path, or that there, the ethical concerns that are raised actually do come to face both Martin and Nassim, the scientist. These are people who are thoughtful about what they are doing, and should we be doing this, and creating a consciousness, what kind of ramifications that has. Are we creating a being and then enslaving it to do our bidding? I do like the relationship that Egan creates between Martin and his son. That becomes very central to Martin's motivations for participating in this. There's a lot of other characters in this book who have this sort of the egomaniacal, I want to live forever sort of thing, and power and all that. And this is the book being centered around Martin and basically wanting to leave something to help educate and guide his son. There's a selflessness to Martin's motivations, which kind of grounds the book, makes it a lot more relatable to, kind of some jazzy techno novel that's kind of, got super villains in it and stuff. Because at the beginning you think, oh, maybe there will be super villains. It's like, no, this is very much kind of an intimate story, and talking about how a lot of scientific discovery, when it comes down to it, has very personal ramifications on our lives, and really kind of can hit at the most intimate parts of ourselves. And I like that about Martin, and also that Martin, when he is guiding himself, he isn't just blind to only that. He's actually somebody who can look at other beings in the world and go, oh, that's not, that maybe that's not right for them. And this is Egan writing a near future novel, but those kind of concerns help the book last. It's written in 2010, set initially in 2012, and I can see this book even in 2027, 28 will still have applications, and because it's not so focused on the nitty gritty of the science, even though Egan does a really good job of depicting that and trying to make it realistic and grounded in the science, as far as I can tell. He also takes the trouble to ground it in the actual human ethical, human motivations of the book, which I think is what makes sort of true science fiction last, versus just focusing on tech. The book does take a long time to set up. I found the first half of the book a bit of a slog, because that you could see, having read the entire book and thought about it now, I can see how Egan was very carefully setting up everything for that final half. But the book doesn't really take off until that final half, and I think a lot of people might find a little bit of trying of their patience to have to get through the first half of the book to finally get to kind of the good stuff. And there's a lot of ways that, as an impatient reader, I wish that Egan was able to kind of more set this stuff up a little bit more rapidly and get you into the core of the book, which is Martin and his son, and that especially. I have to say, Egan probably interests me far more in the Martin and his son side of the story than in Nassim, this Iranian female scientist, that she sort of mostly comes across as a scientist, and that's about it. I didn't get as much of a character about her, and that's probably another slightly kind of weak part of the thing. That's where the science is really trying to is you've really got to be interested in the science on that side of things for it to maybe interest you as much. And I'm not as much a hard science fiction writer, so it just didn't do it to me. Someone might ask, is like, well, why did they set this book in Iran in the first place? I think there's a very particular thing with Martin, and Martin wanting his motivations for wanting to have this a computer simulation of himself for his son, where there wouldn't be other supports. Whether if this was Martin and his son in Australia, there might be a lot more candidates to be able to pass on his attitudes, his own particular culture there, but that isn't an option in Iran. There's also something about Iran being someplace where perhaps there's more of a kind of a thought about especially Iran, I guess, having in the concept of this novel coming out of theocracy, there's still that underlying idea of theocracy of, what's moral, even the idea of duplicating someone is something that would raise ethical flags that might not be raised in Australia per se. That part of the book, I don't really know. I don't know, and I don't know how much Egan is honoring the complexity of a place like Iran and their own thought. I don't know. I don't know if he's just imposing a Western kind of blanket idea of what he thinks Iranians in general and Iranian society would have with this kind of technology as this kind of a future Iran society. So there is that. So this took me a lot. This took me a long time to read, probably because I was spooked off by the whole thing of Egan being the hard science fiction writer. I have had experience with other science fiction writers who've started off being able to do that mix of the technological and the human, getting kind of a good story in there, because I need that mix to have with the science and the technology to kind of carry that along and educate me. I've had access of science fiction writers who later on veered off from story and human characters and just all about the techno science, and it's just like, I don't care anymore. The story has to kind of carry me through with plot and character, I think, in science fiction. In a good science fiction story, that's just the kind of reader I am. So that said, I will probably kind of be careful with the next Egan I pick out, because I think this might be him at his most accessible. I rather suspect, and it I don't know how long it would be till I read my next Egan. It took me 10 years to get to this one. Will I get to another one? I don't know. I guess I'll keep my eyes open. I'll keep my ears peeled to see if there's another Egan that might fulfill my rather soft appetite for hard science fiction. All right. I've been Jay. More videos later.